On a Tesla Model S, it only takes a few taps and swipes to activate the vehicle's autopilot, almost seamlessly. You could be cruising down the highway, changing lanes and avoiding traffic and blind spots as the state-of-the-art vehicle does the work of looking, thinking, and reacting to others on the road. Now, why am I talking about a futuristic function on a car that maybe 100,000 people in this world have? And what does that have to do with my success? The truth is, a lot more than you think. Like many of you, I'm guilty of living my life, or at least portions of it, on autopilot. How many times have you arrived home after a long day at work and realized you didn't think about turning right at the stop sign and then left at the stoplight? You just did it and arrived home, thankfully safe and sound. I've driven home like that, and I can tell you it wasn't a Tesla Model S that was doing the driving for me. Sure, sometimes being on autopilot is a good thing. If you had to consciously think about every step you take, every little thing you do on a daily basis, you'd be mentally exhausted for the tasks that require real brain power. And what requires real brain power? Well, for one, talking to the intelligent woman here with me today, Mel Robbins. Mel's life experience runs the gamut, from lawyer to serial entrepreneur to business coach at some of the world's biggest brands, to award-winning radio show host, best-selling author, and now contributing editor to Success. She'll tell you, I've had a lot of jobs. CNN scooped her up 3 years ago, and now she's one of their most popular on-air commentators and opinion writers. Today, thanks to a TEDx talk that's among the most popular in the world, titled How to Stop Screwing Yourself Over, she's now one of the most sought-after speakers for businesses worldwide. Mel teaches people how to become more effective leaders and improve their lives by closing the knowledge-action gap, breaking the hesitation habit, and using the 5-second rule to force yourself to do the uncomfortable. Mel, it's great to have you back here on the Success CD and part of the Success family again.
I am so excited to be back, and I have to tell you, I have a little bit of a crush on the Tesla Model S, so the fact that you were using that in the opening of this really piqued my interest, and that whole autopilot thing on the Tesla is darn scary. So
Isn't it amazing?
It's amazing. It's hard to believe that in 10 years we all may be inside of cars that drive themselves, but it's exciting to think about.
All right, so let's dive right in and let's talk about this idea of being on autopilot and how to recognize that in your life. So driving home like a rat in a maze, that's life on autopilot. What are some other examples of that?
Well, there are numerous examples when you start to really tune into how much you have a pattern of default thinking and default behavior. So a way to think about autopilot is it's those moments during your day when you're not really directing your thoughts or your behavior. There are scientists at the Harvard Medical School that have recently proven that you spend about 47% of your waking time in an autopilot zone where your mind is basically wandering around doing whatever the heck it wants without you being in charge of your thoughts and actions. So there are lots of examples from when you zone out while you're driving your car on a familiar route. It might also be how you behave in a meeting. If you go into a meeting at work and you quickly pull out your notebook and you start writing and you default into taking notes and thinking about what everybody else is saying instead of participating, that's an autopilot mode. It might also be how you are in your marriage. If you show up at home and you sort of default into a way of being with your husband or your wife or your partner, and you don't show any interest and you aren't that affectionate and you aren't doing things that intentionally deepen your marriage, then you're likely operating in autopilot. It's everywhere, frankly, once you start to tune into it, Shelby.
That's a great point. Now, several years ago, you wrote a column for Success magazine about hitting the snooze button, both figuratively and literally. You wrote, "The time to start my day was in, quote, a couple more minutes. I loved sleep more than starting my day. But 15 minutes and then another 15 minutes passed, and by the time I finally shook off the covers, I started my day already playing catch up." Now, I remember on our social media pages, that idea really grabbed people. And so in terms of human behavior, is this hesitation, as you talked about, at play?
Well, it's a great question, Shelby. And what you're referring to is something that literally the last 4 years of my career is focused on, and that is educating people around the world about the devastating impact of the hesitation habit. So let's just unpack this a little bit. So you talked about this column that I had written for Success magazine and this moment in my life where I was a slave to the snooze button. You know, I was one of those people that the alarm would go off in the morning, and instead of jumping out of bed, I would hit the snooze button, not once, not twice, but usually 3 or 4 times. And it got to be a real problem, to the point where my kids were missing the bus. And sometimes in life, it takes a negative impact on the people that you love, or somebody pressuring you, before you'll actually close the knowledge and the action gap. And by knowledge and action gap, what I mean is that most of us know what we should be doing. Most of us know the work that's required to launch our businesses, to increase our sales, to, really pursue our goals and our dreams. But there's this gap between knowing what to do and actually the action that you take. And so the last 4 years, I've been studying this, and I'm really excited to share a bunch of things that I've learned with you all. And the first one is that, most of us think that it's either fear or it's laziness or it's procrastination that is the biggest obstacle in our life, that you feel failure, that you fear success, that you, fear judgment. The truth is that it's not fear at all. Fear triggers something. So in those moments when I was lounging around in bed instead of getting up and dealing with my life, the truth is that my life was not where I wanted it to be. My husband's restaurants businesses were really in trouble, and I was dreading getting out of bed and kind of dealing with fixing what was a situation that was kind of scary financially. And so it was easier to hit the snooze. I knew what I needed to do. I just, in the moment, it just felt impossible, Shelby.
Yeah.
And so I created something in that moment called the 5-second rule, which was basically this stupid little gimmick at the time where I would count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And by the time I hit 1, I had to stand up because I knew what I needed to do. It's just that I was hesitating in doing it. When the alarm would sound, instead of throwing the sheets off and standing up, I would hesitate. And that hesitation would lead to a pause. And that pause would trigger my mind to wake up. And the second your mind wakes up, it starts thinking, and it starts analyzing, and it starts deciding what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And by the way, your mind has no interest in doing anything that's going to require it to work. And your mind has no interest in doing anything that's going to require you to change. And your mind has no interest in doing anything that feels slightly uncomfortable. And so the second that your mind gets involved, you're screwed. You will hold yourself back. And so it's not really fear. It's not really laziness. It's not really procrastination. What's truly stopping you in your life, and what's robbing you of joy, and what's robbing you of opportunity every single moment, are these small hesitations that you make when you know you should be doing something, which leads to you thinking, which leads to you holding you back. And so what I've learned in the last 4 years, after giving this TED Talk that's gone crazy viral and hearing from literally over 250,000 people via email and social media and blog posts, is that it's really these small hesitations that you have all day long that are the real devastating problem. And that if you focus on the moment of hesitation, you've actually got an opportunity to fight back. That the hesitation, Shelby, has become a habit. It's become a default way of thinking, and it's everywhere. So we started off by talking about autopilot. And yes, you are running a lot of your life on autopilot. And how you kind of tick into autopilot are those moments where you've got a choice to make about whether or not you're going to do something that feels slightly uncomfortable, whether or not you're going to take a small risk, whether or not you're going to share an idea, whether or not you're going to say something, even something as mundane as, you know what, I really don't want to eat at that restaurant tonight. I'd rather eat at that one. But your default way is to keep the peace. And the way that you always kind of fall into that autopilot mode is to hesitate before you say something. And so really taking a look at those moments where you hesitate is an enormous, enormous opportunity to change everything about your business, everything about how you sell, everything about how you think, and everything about what you feel. And it all takes place in literally a 5-second window. And that's why I talk about how it only takes 5 seconds to change your life, because your life is about the small moments, not about the big ones. And in small moments, in just the most mundane day-to-day things, you are actually holding yourself back by this habit of hesitating.
So capitalizing on those 5 seconds, as you say, to take an action, to stop the hesitation, make the decision to do something, whatever that is, that's the key to really making things happen, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I call it the 5-second rule. And let me explain what the rule is, because it sounds really cliche, but there's actually a heck of a lot more going on than you realize. So the 5-second rule is whenever you have an impulse to act on a goal, you have 5 seconds to physically move before your brain kills it. So let me explain that in detail. There are 5 elements to the rule. The first one is whenever you have an impulse. So all day long, whether you're in a selling situation or you're in a situation related to getting in physical shape and going to the gym, or it's a any situation whatsoever, you're constantly being given and fed impulses. It's those moments where you feel like you should do something. It's the moment where you're pulled towards something. It is knowing what you must do. When you feel those impulses and they're tied to a goal that you have, and this second piece, tied to a goal, is critical, because this is not a rule to be impulsive. This is a rule about hyper-intentionality. So if you have a goal to get in shape and you're avoiding the gym, there will be moments throughout your day, whether it's because you see an ad for a Fitbit or it's because you're reminded that you were supposed to go to the gym this morning, where you're going to have an impulse like, I really should make the time before I get home tonight. You only have 5 seconds from the moment you have that impulse related to a goal to physically move. Why am I talking about physical movement? The reason why I'm talking about physical movement, which is the 4th element, so you've got the impulse, you've got the act on a goal, you've got the 5-second window, and then you've got the physical movement. The reason why is because all the research shows that your habits and the beginnings of new habits all begin with physical movement. It's not about thinking. It's about actually doing. There is plenty of advice out there. There are plenty of things that you think about. There are plenty of things that you should be doing that you're noodling. The issue for most of us is, how do we do it? The issue for most of us is starting. The issue for most of us is getting our butts out of the chair and actually pushing ourselves to do what feels uncomfortable. And the 5-second rule is a rule that you can use that is actually backed by research and backed by science and backed by neuroscience and neuroplasticity. And why this rule is so important is because if you take physical action, which within 5 seconds of an impulse, Shelby, what happens is, instead of hesitating, which has become your default habit, you're actually interrupting that default behavior of hesitating, and you're inserting a brand new behavior, which is physical movement in a different direction. Why am I asking you to do something physical? It's because when you do something physical, you stimulate a larger part of your brain than just thinking. And when you do that and you stimulate all the different parts of your brain that are directing physical activity, you not only interrupt your habit of hesitating and blowing things off and letting your brain take over and kick you into autopilot and have you not do it, you're now inserting something different that is an action. And actions are the beginning of the formation of all your new neural pathways. And neural pathways are the highways of your habits. And so this rule is critical. In fact, it's not only critical, it is the only way that you change behavior.
You said in the TED Talk, the first 5 seconds, those first 2 to 3 seconds when you're in your cozy bed and you're nice and you're warm and the alarm goes off, how difficult it is to take those first steps to actually get out of bed. The will that takes is the hard work. That's the hardest that your brain is going to fight you on. And so if you recognize that feeling of God, I don't want to do this. I want to stay here. I'm just going to let myself drift off and close my eyes for 10, 15 more minutes. Fighting that instinct, that is part of the physical. That's part of your, I guess, fighting your brain, really.
Yeah. And, look, it's never going to change. If you think about Nike, most famous tagline in the world, just do it. The word just is critical because I think that they understood that, there's always a hesitation. And our minds are not wired to jump on something new and fast. Our minds hate quick change. And so as weird as it sounds, lying in a bed, super cozy, comfortable, it requires physical force to get out of bed. Scientists call it activation energy. And the same is true if you're sitting in your chair at work and you're surfing Facebook or you're working on something. Now it's time to get up and go for a walk at lunch because you read in Success magazine that if you exercise during your lunch break, it actually stimulates your brain and it creates a chemical release that stimulates faster thinking and processing, and you're going to get about 90 minutes of better thinking, and you know that that's really good for you. And what to do is pretty simple. Get your butt out of the chair, walk out the door. But in the moment, it feels impossible. In the moment, it feels uncomfortable. And if you really think about it, you only do the things you feel like doing or that you get paid to do. Right. That's it. And so this is a tool that will help you force yourself to do the work that's required to have the things you don't have right now.
Right. So Mel, a tough thing we all face is the idea of pleasing others. So why is it so important that we move past this need to please others and learn to focus on ourselves a little bit more?
It's a fabulous question, and it's something that we all struggle with. And here's why it's critical that you utilize the 5-second rule to actually be courageous enough to bring the real you to the surface. Not the you that's busy keeping the peace and avoiding judgment, but the real you. And that is because you're here on earth, and I'm about to get hyper kind of spiritual, soulful with you, but you're here on earth to make an impact. I don't think most of us actually stop and think about how amazing of a miracle that you are. You need to get that the fact that you're even alive is mind-blowing. And then when you throw on top of it how unique your DNA is, that's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And I believe that each one of us, and the fact that we are so unique, that DNA structure, that miracle in you is what is programming the impulses that you have. And a funny thing is that, even when you feel really stuck, even when you face setbacks, your dreams and your impulses and the way that your soul talks to you, I call it the language of your soul, it never shuts up. If you've actually always dreamt of writing a book and you've never even started, I guarantee you it has haunted you. That is the unique aspect of you, your soul talking to you. And it will keep on talking until you start doing the work. Because your soul has one job, and that is to make sure that you figure out who you are and the work that you're supposed to do that's going to leave your unique mark on this world. And when you start to tune into your impulses and you develop the courage that the 5-second rule will give you to stop focusing on what everybody else wants you to do, and to start revealing the truth about who you are and what your ideas are and how you want to do things, to focus on yourself and your own journey. Not to be wildly selfish or a jerk to people. I'm just talking about having the courage and the confidence to reveal who you really are and what you're really thinking, and to do the work connected to that. That's when your life changes. I mean, everybody that we admire, from Stephen Jobs to Oprah Winfrey to Jay-Z to Beyonce. I mean, anybody whose success you admire, guess what they're doing? They're following their unique path. I always find it so interesting that we want to try to do things exactly how, Richard Branson from Virgin did it.
Mm-hmm.
That was his path. What you need to take away from him is that you need to find yours. And the way that you do that is you start to honor what the impulses related to your goals are telling you to do in the moment.
Right.
In the moment, Richard Branson isn't thinking about how Tony Robbins would do things. He's listening to himself. That's what you need to do. And that's why it's so important to take the focus off of what everybody else wants and trying to anticipate it and worrying about judgment and worrying about pleasing others, and truly listen to yourself. If you don't listen to yourself, who the hell else is going to?
Right. All right, Mel. So to wrap up our time together, I'd like to ask you some fun, kind of quick draw questions. These are questions that we ask everybody on the Success CD. So are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So you're in your car and a song comes on the radio that you have to turn up loud and sing at the top of your lungs. What's that song?
Right now, it's a random song called Cake by the Ocean. And I'm sure none of you have ever heard of it before. My children turned us on to it over our holiday break, and I absolutely love it. Cake by the Ocean. Spotify it, Google it, get it on your playlist. You'll love it.
Love it. If you're an animal, what kind of animal do you think you would be?
Oh, I think personality-wise, I'm probably like a big cat, like a lion or a tiger or something, because I'm, slinky and I like my pride of people, but I'm also a hunter and, playful. But if I could choose to be a type of animal, it'd probably be like an eagle or something, like, something that can just soar and fly. And I think that'd be kind of cool.
I see the big cat thing. I think one of our early headshots of you for success.com, you've got the windblown thing. And
my God.
It was a great looking photo,
lioness.
but I remember you emailed, you're like, oh my God, you got to take the lioness down.
Yes. Oh, my kids were teasing me. That's why.
All right. Superwoman or Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman. She's got a better outfit and I love her bracelets.
Good
Boots,
point.
man. Gotta love the boots.
Always boots. Best book that you've read in the last 6 months?
So, I read a book every single day called the Book of Awakening. And I've been reading it now for over a year and a half. It's daily meditations that are a page or two long. And my husband turned me on to the book, and it is magical in its ability to help me stay focused and present. And I just love the way Mark Narrow writes, and it's the Book of Awakening. That's my favorite book.
Finally, how do you define success?
How much joy I feel. The more joy you feel, the more successful I think your life is.
Fantastic, Mel. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that our future endeavors here at Success are going to be very successful, and I think we're going to be able to help a lot of people and create a lot of great content.
So I don't want our conversation to end, Shelby. I feel like we're just getting started, and I'm so excited to be joining the Success family as a contributing editor, and I cannot wait to contribute both to the magazine, but also you're going to see us all over social. And if you want to follow up with me, if you have any questions, I answer all of our emails personally. Just go to melrobbins.com. And, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Snapchat, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I would love to connect with you all there.
Wow, that was such a powerful conversation with Mel. She had so many great things to say, so let's narrow it down so we can get started and put into motion those first action steps. Mel said life isn't about the big moments. It's about the small ones and the little actions that go with them. She said it's not about what we think in those moments, but what we do. So, first thing, use the 5-second rule to take a physical action in the first few seconds of an impulse or an idea. For example, if you're in bed and you want to hit the snooze button, start counting down from 5. Before you reach 2 or 1, get up and get out of bed. Don't let hesitation take over and let you decide it's just easier to sleep in. Like Mel said, you'll never feel like doing it, so just do it. Another thing Mel and I talked about was authenticity and following your unique path. Are you honoring your personal impulses and inspirations? Because that's where your true success comes from. We need to start listening to ourselves more. Learning from others is great, but only you can do what's innate to your talents to be the success only you're capable of. Finally, and I know this will be a game changer for me, is using Mel's 5-second rule to stop editing and censoring myself. When I feel the need to edit my natural ideas and impulses, quickly think about whether it aligns with my ultimate goal and then decide. If it does, say it or do it and own it. A lot to do, so let's start the countdown and get going.